I just want to make a quick announcement that will be going live on YouTube very, very quickly, if not already. Thank you. Mr. Smith, I just saw you log in. Would you like to do a quick mic check?
Sure. Can you hear me?
Hear you good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Oh, Molly, it says you are now connected. I just want to do a quick mic check if possible.
Sorry, I'm here, and I'll turn my camera on as soon as we get started.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I have a message that Michelle Jordan has just joined us as well. Are you available for a quick microphone check?
I do. Dr. Jordan on the line. Good afternoon.
Thank you very much.
Is Supervisor Wasserman on?
Supervisor Wasserman is not yet on.
All right, we shall give him a minute or so. It's 1:59. I bet he'll pop in at 2.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair.
Oh, Supervisor Wasserman, there you are. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Supervisor Wasserman.
Hey, Colin, one 1:59. Don't call me late to dinner, Colin.
Absolutely not. No. And it's still 1:59, so I'm going to wait a couple seconds to call the meeting to order.
Good deal.
All right, and here we are at 2 p.m. on June 4th, 2020. And with that, I'm going to call to order this meeting of the Public Safety and Justice Committee. I can't begin this meeting without recognizing the moment. So I will take the chair's prerogative to do so. George Floyd's death, the latest in a long, horrific line of Black men and boys who have been shot or otherwise killed during encounters with police officers across our country, is both tragic and infuriating. So to those who are exercising their First Amendment rights to scream in pain, to yell out, and to assemble, I hear you and I stand with you. We are at an unprecedented crossroads where a global health pandemic, stark economic hardship, and racial inequities have bubbled to the surface, something that we have all known was here for generations and painfully have yet to adequately address. It is up to every one of us to make the change we want to see in our community. Speaking for myself, I need to critically assess my own leadership and position to see what more I can do and how I can use my position to elevate the voices of others. At the end of this afternoon's meeting, I'm going to offer some concrete suggestions that I'd like this committee to discuss at our August meeting. And with that, I will turn back to the clerk for public comment. Do we have speakers today, Colin? Oh, we didn't
Roll call.
do a roll call. There you go. Let's do that and then public comment.
Vice Chairperson Wasserman,
Here.
Chairperson Ellenberg.
I am here. And also Supervisor Wasserman, do you want to make any comments before I turn to public comment?
Thank you. I'll be very brief. I think you spoke very eloquently as usual. But the pain, the anger, the fear that exists in our communities locally and nationally, I've never seen anything like it for a myriad of reasons. But demonstrations that are going on are certainly making a point. And I know I'm listening, and I know my peers and people throughout the country. And we do have to have change. And I believe, because I'm an optimistic, cup is half full kind of guy, that change will occur and we will get better. I did just hang up, Madam Chair, 5 minutes ago with a Zoom presentation to the Santa Clara Rotary, where one of their youngest members is due to have a baby next week, and they've decided to name that baby Hope. And they're naming him Hope because of all that's going on and how they believe in hope. And we all need to work together to make things better. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And now to call in public comments.
We have 5 speakers.
Oh, Nancy, I'm sorry.
That's quite all right. How much time would you like to allow? 2 minutes?
Yeah, let's do 2 minutes, please. Thank you.
First speaker is Scott Largent. I am unmuting you. Please accept the unmute and you will have 2 minutes to speak. The timer will start when you begin speaking.
Thank you, everybody. Good afternoon, Scott Largent. I do appreciate both of the supervisors right now making a public statement about what has been happening in our community, of course, across the United States, basically across the world right now. I was down there observing the protesting, and what was a civil and peaceful gathering that should have been allowed to happen. They should have been given the proper space, the proper security, the proper staff, for people to be able to vent and exercise their democratic values. When the San Jose PD came through there, they came through there with just hate, anger, and vengeance. They started firing every known projectile as I started to collect all these, tear gas canisters, rubber bullets, I was able to take a couple home with me after they had hit me right in the rib cage and one cleared basically the side of my head. This is not right. San Jose PD is absolutely out of control. And thankfully, our sheriff's department, after what had happened in our jails, completely did a 180 and fixed things, changed things, implemented the proper training. And I'll tell you guys something. The sheriff's department, the Santa Clara County Sheriff's Department, saved this from turning into a Rodney King riot. They came in there, they did it right. They allowed people to vent. And I'll tell you something, I have hundreds of videos of violence from the San Jose Police Department. I don't have a single video of any Santa Clara County Sheriff's deputy that hit anybody with a baton, fired anything at them. They did it right. And they saved the day. But I would appreciate if you supervisors and you other staff would get out there to the media, do a press conference, and start saying, what you saw online. So thank you.
Thank you, Scott.
Our next speaker is Ron Hansen. I am unmuting you. Please accept the unmute and you will have 2 minutes to speak. The timer will start when you begin speaking.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Supervisors Ellenberg and Wasserman and committee. I'm Ron Hansen. I'm affiliated with PACT. In these days of a dramatically expanded...
Ron Hansen, I am unmuting you. Please accept the unmute and you will have 2 minutes to speak.
I'm not sure what happened. Ron had started to speak, so let's please reset his time to 2 minutes and then go ahead again, Ron.
Okay, am I on?
Yes.
Thank you. I'm Ron Hansen with PACT. In these days of a dramatically expanded law enforcement presence within our communities and the public's increasing engagement with them, it is crucial, both for transparency and accountability's sake, that the establishment of our county's Office of Custody and Law Enforcement Monitoring, or OCLEM, be concluded with all due haste. Establishing a monitoring body has been a priority of this board for nearly 4 years. A key piece of this body's establishment is a completed information sharing agreement between the Sheriff's Office, County Council, and OCLEM. As of today, for the public, there is no clarity on the status of that agreement. In the past week, a deputy-involved shooting occurred on our streets. As of today, any inquiry related to that incident will remain completely opaque. As thousands in our own and neighboring communities continue to call for better law enforcement oversight and monitoring, we urge this committee to exert every means to make OCLEM operational as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next.
Our next speaker is Cecilia. I am unmuting you. Please accept the unmute and you will have 2 minutes to speak. The timer will start when you begin speaking.
Okay, sorry, it wasn't letting me. So my name is Cecilia Chavez, and I'm an organizer with Silicon Valley Debug. And my colleagues are going to speak more about this, but we did send a letter to you all, the Public Safety and Justice Committee, that speaks around all the issues that we're currently seeing. I want to speak more to the conditions inside jail. I know you guys are going to hear a number of reports from all these different agencies, but I just want to speak to the concerns that we're hearing from the community that we support, those who are incarcerated at Elmwood. None of the things that the sheriff is saying that are happening are actually happening. We are hearing accounts from individuals inside that say that COs are watering down the disinfecting things that they use. They don't give them soap. They're not giving them their commissary. Again, there's all these issues that the sheriff is not addressing. We've sent as an organization multiple emails to get answers, and so far no one seems to know who is the agency responsible to answering these questions. It's not just giving reports of this is what we're doing, but it's actually doing those things, because the people that are inside are suffering. This is why there's an outbreak inside of Elmwood because the sheriffs aren't doing the work that they need to be doing. They're not cleaning, they're not sanitizing. They wear their masks on their belts as if the belts are going to contract coronavirus. Come on, the masks go in the face. They don't go in your elbow. They don't go in around your ear. They go in your mouth, around your mouth to protect everyone, not just for the inmate safety, but for the CO safety as well. So those are the things that we're listening, and there needs to be more accountability from the sheriffs. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Benet Vahar. I am unmuting you. Please accept the unmute. And you will have 2 minutes to speak. The timer will start when you begin speaking.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Benet Vahar. I'm with Silicon Valley Debug, and I wanted to address the issues that have been taking place in custody. I actually sat on the oversight committee to pick Oakland, and we would like the sheriff to respond to their responses to continue this oversight. Also, I want to talk about reinstating visits to main jail to the detainees behind glass. I'm pretty sure something can happen there. But I also want to speak about the women's facility at Elmwood. I've been meeting with the family on a weekly basis about their loved one that's incarcerated. The person that's incarcerated, her name is Vanessa Demetrius. She is currently serving some dead time. All charges been resolved, and she's still not out of custody. Her mother just passed away. She couldn't even get a Zoom meeting. Her mother passed away from cancer. Her father is a doctor here in San Jose. She missed seeing her mother for one last time. Her father is livid right now because he has to bury his wife and their daughter couldn't be at the funeral. The conditions that Vanessa is telling me is that women are throwing up on the floor in the dorms and they have to clean it up themselves. The correctional officers aren't giving them any kind of sanitation to clean it up, anything to clean it up. The women are running fevers. They're coughing on each other. The correctional officers are basically keeping them inside their cells with nobody checking up on them. All we're asking is that, please, can somebody go and help these women, help the whole facility, all 3 facilities, to check on the conditions that the sheriff is not helping with. We ask for meetings with the sheriff and she declines the community. Please help us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Andrew. I am unmuting you. Please accept the unmute and you will have 2 minutes to speak. The timer will start when you begin speaking.
Right on. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Right on. Thank you. So my name is Andrew Bigelow. I'm also from Silicon Valley Debug. I live in San Jose. I'm actually just want to bring up regarding the protests, so like San Jose Police Department definitely thoroughly mishandled the circumstances out there. And then they're arrested people in which they shouldn't be arresting people to begin with. But they did arrest people on top of shooting, tear gas, all that type of stuff, right? But I think on the back end of that, they're not following, the county sheriff is not following the zero bail violations. So that right now it's supposed to be a zero bail, and they're holding people who got arrested from this protest over the weekend. And then with the court closures postponing arraignment hearing, they're not just letting people go. And we have testimonies of that, people telling us their experience being dropped off at the Great Mall at like some obscene hour of the night. So I just want to say that this is all, it sounds like PD, but it's also the sheriff's office. It's also, I don't know what the DA's office is doing to ensure that these people are being let go, and that they're not being detained. It's really a shortcoming of all of it, and the courts being closed on top of it. Lastly, if I could just say one more thing too, these protests are in response to police violence. And I also think that, I think we'd be ignorant to say that doesn't happen here in our community, and to think of the ways of different systems, including San Jose PD Sheriff's Office or the District Attorney's Office, doesn't play a role in not charging or holding officers accountable as well. I just want to put that for food for thought. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Raj Jayadev. I am unmuting you. Please accept the unmute and you will have 2 minutes to speak. The timer will start when you begin speaking.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me? Okay. So
Yes, we can.
my name is Raj. I'm with Silicon Valley Debug, and Debug is part of a coalition called the Coalition for Justice and Accountability. We had submitted a letter on behalf of all those organizations earlier today about the zero bail and the detentions. So just quickly, I wanted to speak to two issues. One, I really hope you read the letter and the attached petition, the writ that was submitted by the Public Defender's Office to the court. Essentially, the jail has not been honoring the zero bail schedule immediate release protocols, have been keeping people on zero bail offenses. So these are most misdemeanors, some low-level felonies. The point of the zero bail schedule that the Judicial Council implemented was to reduce people's exposure to jail and then reduce the potential of an outbreak. But despite that, and despite Santa Clara being a participant of this bail schedule intended to slow down or reduce the curve, the sheriff's office and the jail has been keeping people unnecessarily long in the jail and driving them deeper into detention, which only increases the amount of people they're in contact with. So this was a concern before the protest. It's certainly exponentially higher as a result of the protests. And we have stories of people that went in, should have been immediately released. They're held in intake for up to 10 hours, even transported, strip searched, then moved to another facility like Elmwood, and then released, 14, 15 hours later. So I urge you to make some immediate changes, read the documents. And I'm also echoing the call to reinstate visitations. These families haven't seen their loved ones in over 2 months. And given the crisis in the jail, it's utmost priority that they should be able to at least see their loved ones. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Megan Whelan. I am unmuting you. Please accept the unmute and you will have 2 minutes to speak. The timer will start when you begin speaking.
Hi, this is Megan Wheelahan, attorney from the Law Foundation of Silicon Valley. My organization has been taking calls from numerous people who are currently detained in the Santa Clara County jail system. We've documented reports from more than a dozen current inmates, all saying the same thing, that the conditions in the jail do not allow for increased hand washing, sanitization, and that the officers do not consistently take basic precautions to prevent the risk of them transmitting the virus to others within the system, and that many people remain in custody who otherwise could be eligible for release under zero bail, SORP, or probation, but are waiting extended periods of time for court dates and contact with their attorneys. The community has been telling us these things from the start of the pandemic. I want to point out that Dr. Redmond's report also noted that minimum camp is a particular area of concern for spread. That report was issued April 12th, and the recommended additional measures to be taken to minimize the spread at minimum camp were included. First-hand accounts from inmates housed at minimum camp are that there is no possibility of social distancing, that working inmates at minimum camp are used to clean isolation units with very little protective equipment, and that the housing units are filthy in every imaginable way. We have heard reports of vermin, mold, and limited access to cleaning supplies. The news of 2 additional positive cases at the minimum camp was predictable, as is further spread within the jail complex in the future without a significant change in policy and practice within the jail system. We call on the sheriff to use her discretion to promptly release inmates who are within 3 months of release, who are eligible for supervised release, and especially those with risk factors for serious illness. We ask this committee to bring in a public health officer as a permanent fixture at the jail throughout this pandemic, and to demand a plan to address the aforementioned conditions in order to reduce the extent of future spread. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Our last speaker is Christine Clifford. I am unmuting you. Please accept the unmute and you will have 2 minutes to speak. The timer will start when you begin speaking. And it appears Ms. Clifford is using an older version of Zoom and we are unable to give her access to speak.
I'm sorry to hear that. Thanks, Nancy. With that, I'm going to move to item 3, which is approval of the consent calendar. We have one item on consent today, and that's item 6. I'll be happy to entertain a motion and then go to public comment.
I'll make a motion to approve item 6, which is the minutes from May 7th.
And I shall second that. And do we have public comment? Do we have public comment on the consent calendar?
We have one speaker.
All right.
Our next speaker is Scott Largent. I am unmuting you. Please accept the unmute and you will have 2 minutes to speak. The timer will start when you begin speaking.
Thank you, everyone. Scott Largent. You know, on the consent calendar, the reason I'm making my comment right now, and it is on point, on topic, so to say. Last meeting, and this is the receival of the minutes from that last meeting, I had several other people out in the hallway of the county building that were trying to participate. We were trying to get on there for public comment, okay? We keep getting kicked off the Wi-Fi from the city, keep getting kicked off the Wi-Fi at the county building. The service is spotty. You know, you request agendas in the hallway. Sometimes they're there, sometimes they're not. You start asking for more help. Nobody gives a crap, okay? And what's starting to happen at these meetings, and Big Daddy Joe Simidian, I was always, you know, Joe was very good about letting people speak and giving them the 2 minutes, giving them the 3 minutes, keep it by the book. What's happening now is people are not even allowing public comment. They're given a minute. And then Supervisor Chavez right now is just a big bully as being the president of the board and is tacoing items together. And what I'm noticing, and I'm telling you, she probably will never talk to me again, but she's starting to bully other supervisors. And I don't like her steering people in that direction right now. We should be allowed 3-minute public comment. I understand there's 5 people, 10 people. Start going by the rules that you put out there, okay? We need to be able to speak. And there's people out in that hallway that you should go out there and ask if they need anything, okay? They're homeless. They're exempt from the order right now. Maybe they need help logging on. Maybe put a terminal out there so they can actually get onto the meetings. And I owned an electronics business for 20 years and I was pretty tech savvy. Half the time I cannot figure this Zoom crap out. I'm telling you, I'm going all the way around your guys' website. You know, you're like in panic mode and then you don't even realize the meeting's already ended, okay? Just imagine if an elderly person wanted to get on here. What if my grandma wanted to make public comment? That cell phone would go out the window.
Thank you. All right. Do we need to vote to approve the consent calendar? A roll call vote?
Yes.
Okay.
Vice Chairperson Wasserman?
I'm unmuting. Yes, I made the motion and the chair seconded it, but I'll vote again, yes.
As will I. Thanks.
Thank you.
That brings us to item number 4, which is to receive verbal reports from the departments reporting to the Public Safety and Justice Committee relating to county response to COVID-19. And the way I'd like to do this, Supervisor Wasserman, if you're amenable, is that Martha will tee up each department report. And if we have questions, we'll ask at the end of each report rather than waiting until the end of the entire item. Is that all right with you? Okay.
That sounds great. Each department has a report.
I'm not sure that everyone does, but Martha will lead us through that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Supervisor Rob Coelho here. Do you want to take public comment at the end or do you want to take it at the outset of the item?
Thank you for the reminder. Let's take it right now so I don't risk forgetting it. Thank you.
Okay, we ready?
No, Martha, we're going to take public comment.
Sorry, I wasn't able to hear that. Okay.
I apologize. We'll take public comment first and then go to the item. Thank you. And do we have speakers?
Yes, our first speaker is Scott Largent. I am unmuting you. Please accept the unmute and you will have 2 minutes to speak. The timer will start when you begin speaking.
Thank you, everyone. Scott Largent. No agency, nobody's perfect in this world. I understand that I praised what our sheriff's department did involving the riots that happened downtown. But the reason I'm commenting right now is when I was arrested downtown, being a legal observer, of course, being homeless, exempt from this order, I was taken over to the arena behind there. And then I was thrown on a bus side by side with a bunch of people with no masks on, no protective gear. And of all things, I was taken out to the Great Mall. Now, I wasn't taken to Elmwood. I wasn't taken to the Santa Clara County Jail. I want to know what happened and why that happened, and if that is constitutionally legal to dump somebody in a parking lot. When I was out there, there were several girls that were out there, younger girls, college students, that shouldn't be sitting in a parking lot. And in case anybody didn't know, they had looting going on at that mall earlier in the evening. So when I started asking questions after I was dumped by the sheriff's deputies out of the van, I started talking to Milpitas Police Department. Then they started telling me, get the F out of here. We're going to arrest you. You're trespassing. So you're going this back and forth. What do? And then due to the pandemic, the light rail only runs from 6 in the morning till 6 in the evening. The 61 bus out there does not run that late. So there was no way for anybody to get back from the Great Mall. And then to add insult to injury, Sean Cartwright, another well-known homeless advocate, because she was very outspoken and telling him, look, this isn't cool. They went ahead and dumped her out at East Ridge Mall. Okay, they brought her out in a van. They unclipped the zip ties. Now she has health issues. She was shot in the knee with a rubber bullet. There's other issues I don't even want to discuss that she has to deal with. But that is not fair. That's not cool to do. And I want answers about that. Okay, and this can be discussed at this meeting when the COVID report comes out. So thank you.
Thank
Our
you.
next speaker is Christine Clifford. I am unmuting you. Please accept the unmute and you will have 2 minutes to speak. The timer will start when you begin speaking. Again, I am unable to give Miss Christine Clifford time to speak since she is running an older version of Zoom and the system will not allow me to unmute her.
Is there another option? Is there a call-in number?
There is a call-in number that is on our on the agenda, and it's on the welcome page of the PSJC website as well.
And through the chair,
yes,
Madam Chair, if I may, to Nancy. Nancy, do you have the ability to talk to Christine?
I do not.
You do not. Okay. Well, hopefully Scott or somebody's listening to this, and if somebody could mention to Christine what the likely problem is that she needs to update her version of Zoom, and that way she'll be okay going forward. Thank you, Madam Chair.
I do have an additional speaker that just came on.
All right.
And it looks like Christine is back. Can try this again.
Third time's the charm, maybe.
And we are having the same issue.
Okay.
And the other speaker fell off the queue.
All right, someday we'll be back in person and this will become a little bit easier again. I apologize to any members of our public who are not able to access this system. And I'll turn to Martha.
Thank you very much. So as you mentioned, each department is invited to speak if they like generally about their COVID responses. And more specifically, we'll be asking custody health services, sheriff's office, and office of reentry services in the Office of Supportive Housing to speak more specifically about 5 topics. Very briefly, first of all, the temporary housing hotline, the current reentry resource center services, transportation options for inmates getting released, procedures inside the jail, as well as testing of arrestees at intake booking, and discharge planning for jail releases for asymptomatic individuals. So I'll be asking the department heads one at a time to comment, and as the chair mentioned earlier, take questions throughout the presentations. I'm going to ask the speakers to keep your comments to 5 minutes each so we can ensure that everyone has a chance to speak and also leave time for questions on these important issues. So with that, we'll go ahead and start with the Medical Examiner Coroner's Office. Dr. Jordan.
Good afternoon, everyone. It feels good. I'm usually the last person, so this time I'm the first person, so thank you. The Medical Examiner Coroner's Office really doesn't have anything additional to report in addition to the report that we issued last month. But I'm more than happy to take any questions if people have questions. We continue to operate 100% at the office. As everyone knows, we do examine the COVID-19 deaths, and we are continuing to work closely and collaboratively with our partners, specifically Public Health Department. And that's basically the end of my report, but I'm more than happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Supervisor Wasserman?
No, ma'am.
No questions. Thank you very much, Dr. Jordan.
Okay, and with that, we'll go ahead and go to probation. Chief Garnett.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I did text Christine Clifford and told her about the call-in number, so she may be calling in. We don't have many updates to report. We're still in the same status as we were on the last Public Safety and Justice meeting. I will report the youth in custody continue to seem to be doing really well. I think our staff are just doing a phenomenal job, because I really want people to think about going on, I don't even know, week 12, 13 without anybody visiting them, except including teachers, everybody. I mean, a couple of mental health clinicians and our staff, and medical staff, and that's been it. And in spite of that, they are upbeat and doing well. And we're checking in regularly. And as far, we're just kind of in a holding pattern. We've got people working super hard at home. We have people assisting during the civil unrest in many different ways, and both helping squelch the unrest part and helping to repair some of the damage that's been done downtown. We have staff out helping board up and paint. And I think that's it. Happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Chief. Supervisor?
No, ma'am.
No questions from me either. Thank you very much.
All right, next is Pretrial Services. Director Fisk, you want to take us through this one?
Thank you, and I'll be happy to take any questions also. Just briefly report, I'm very grateful for staff who have been really taking on challenges. They've been very resilient, very focused, and very positive, taking on tasks. The client load is increasing, but we've been able to maintain the following 4 priorities in really good shape. 24/7, we're at the jail. The Sheriff's Department, great support there. So we're expediting safe releases around the clock, getting people reviewed and released as soon as possible. We continue to provide information to the family court so they can make informed decisions about protective orders. There's a concern about domestic violence in the community with a shelter-in-place situation. So we want to make sure that we continue to get that information to the family court. Supervision is growing. The client load is growing by 300 to 500 cases per month. And so we're shifting our priorities, really ultra focusing on more frequent contacts and contacting the people who need the most support. And that's especially true of the 4th category, which is the area of electronic monitoring. Those are the ones that the judges and the public safety and justice partners have signaled that those individuals need the most support. That's why they're on an ankle bracelet. So we're paying special attention to those. Happy to handle any questions.
Thanks, Matthew.
Sure.
None from here. Thank you, Matt.
All right. We'll keep moving along then right now. Thank you.
All right. District Attorney Rosen, please.
Yes, good afternoon. The report from the District Attorney's Office on the COVID effects. We continue to communicate and enforce the public health order as it's been modified a few times over the last few weeks. We've been very involved with course, the Sheriff's Department and the Public Defender's Office and the courts in reducing the jail population. And to remind everyone, our jail population before COVID struck was about 3,400. And within several weeks, at the request of the jail medical doctor, we reduced the jail population to between 2,100 and 2,200. So more than a 1/3 increase within several weeks. 3, the court is gradually opening more, and so there's slowly more hearings that are taking place, and we're gradually bringing back additional staff to the office to handle those things which can't be handled remotely. A number of our employees have been reassigned as disaster service workers to homeless shelters in Milpitas and Campbell, motels that have been converted into homeless shelters. And so over the last few days, I visited our staff at these different shelters, and they're doing very good work along with many other county employees to house these medically vulnerable populations. In addition, we were pleased to have been featured in The Bridge, which goes out to all county employees, highlighting the efforts in the DA's office to keep our staff together, communicate, maintain our hierarchy, keep our morale up, and communicate everyone to what our mission is and to be able to continue doing that. And then finally, we have formed a committee that we call Beyond the Curve, which is made up of a cross-section of our office, prosecutors, investigators, support staff, criminalists, members of the union leadership, to discuss how our operations should be different going forward from, and I'm talking about in 3 months, 6 months, and 3 years, that kind of time frame. And we're, of course, looking at more remote work opportunities and among other things. So that's the report from the DA's office.
Thank you. Questions?
No, he just keeps coming up with those catchy names. I have to give him credit for that. It's well done,
All
Mr.
right.
PA. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Seeing no other questions from the court, Judge Gaffon?
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon. As Mr. Rosen mentioned, the court is in the process of slowly reopening the courtrooms in the criminal division. We are expecting, as of next week, to be back up and running on all domestic violence cases. That's something that we've been doing arraignments on, both in and out of custody, but we're going to be expanding those services to cover all cases involving domestic violence as of Monday. We're also resuming, we've already resumed one trial that was in session when the shelter in place went into effect. We will be resuming the other 2 trials that were suspended. Those will both be resuming on June 16th. And it's our expectation and our hope that the week of June 15th, we will be calling in our first jury panel to select a jury to try a case, which is a challenge given the social distancing and other requirements. But we've worked very hard within our court and also with the public defender and the district attorney's office to come up with a plan, which I think is going to be workable. It's going to take significantly more time to try cases than it did before, but we're committed to getting back to that work. And as we move through the month of June, I expect that more courtrooms will be reopening and more services will be resuming as we get through the month.
Thanks, Judge Geffen. Can you talk a little bit about the thinking behind the closure of the courts on Monday? What prompted that, what the intended impact was, and if you know how many cases were impacted by closure that day?
So the decision was made by Judge Ryan. And so I know some of what her thinking was, having spoken to her about it, but obviously she's in the best position to describe what she was thinking. But my understanding of what was occurring was that she had been made aware that several courts throughout the state, including Los Angeles, were going to be closing for the day given the potential protests. There was some concern about protests in and around the courthouse, there was a alert that went out to our court facility on Friday, the Friday before, at about 3:30 or 4, directing everyone to leave as quickly as they could, because there was a protest that was at least believed to be heading in the direction of the court. And so for those reasons, given the uncertainty of what was happening at the time, Judge Ryan made the decision to close the courthouse on Monday of this week. All of the cases that were on calendar for Monday, with one exception, which I'll discuss, but all of the cases that were on calendar for Monday were continued to Tuesday and were ultimately heard. So there was a 1-day delay in the cases that were set, and that did include arraignments that were scheduled to be heard on Monday. The only type of case that we were not able to accommodate a 1-day continuance of were the felony in custody plea matters. Those are cases that, frankly, until about 2 weeks ago, we were not hearing at all. We started hearing those on a calendar that we made room on, and so we began hearing them. But because those calendars are impacted each day, we didn't have calendar space to simply continue those 1 day. So that day's cases were continued under our sort of other protocol that we've been using. I will note that we have a calendar that exists that allows the parties to calendar any case they would like on 2 days' notice for to be dealt with, to try to resolve a case or to move the case forward. So hopefully any cases that we did not hear on Monday that needed to be heard were able to be heard by Wednesday or today at the latest. And that's that was the impact in the court. Other than that, all the cases were heard on Tuesday.
But was there any, thank you, any impact on anyone who was in custody and was detained longer as a result of the court closing?
Well, I would assume that, well, I mean, everybody who was in custody for an arraignment Monday was put over to Tuesday. I haven't looked at the cases, but I would assume that there were some people released on Tuesday at an arraignment who, had they been arraigned Monday, would have been released on Monday. So I can't say that there wasn't a delay for some people of 24 hours in being released, but I honestly haven't looked that closely at who got arraigned on Tuesday that was put over to see if any of those defendants were released. But those would be the only people that could have been impacted in a delayed release based on Monday's closure.
Thank you. I'm going to guess that we'll hear more from the public defender on that subject. Thank you. Supervisor Wasserman, any questions for the judge?
I just want to use this opportunity to pass on a compliment to the presiding judge. Does an excellent job giving us updates of anything significant that happens during the week in emails off agenda. And I really appreciate that. And good job getting current. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll pass that along to Judge Ryan.
Thank you. Martha.
Supervisor Ellenberg, before we go on to Public Defender O'Neill, Ms. Christine Clifford indicates that she is available on the call when timing is appropriate.
Let's do it. Let's hear from Christine right now. Thank you.
Okay, and she is calling in. Is that correct?
She indicated she's on the call now.
Okay. Okay, Christine Clifford, I am unmuting you. Please accept the unmute and you will have 2 minutes to speak. The timer will start when you begin speaking. Hello, Christine? Hello?
Maybe a little later.
Okay. We don't seem to be having any luck. Would you happen to know the last 4 digits of her number, her phone number? Just to make sure that I have the correct person.
This is Laura Garnett. Just give me 1 second and I'll give it to you.
It's 4502.
Okay, then here she is. Okay. Christine, I am unmuting you. Please accept the unmute and you will have 2 minutes to speak. The timer will start when you begin speaking.
Thank you. My apologies. I am so sorry this has been such a problem. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Okay, so thanks. I have 2 requests, and perhaps these issues will be covered in the report. But I'm once again asking about the renewal of visitation in the jails, which are non-contact visits that are conducted behind glass and in closed booths. So now that several aspects of our life in the county are opening up using appropriate safety measures, the families of those incarcerated and those inside would like an update about what conversations are happening between the Sheriff's Office and Public Health to make visitations possible. Inquiries and grievances made by detainees and families resulted in responses from the grievance unit and the captain in Main Jail North saying that these decisions were up to Public Health. Responses from Public Health to the families were that these decisions ultimately lie with the Sheriff's Office. Emails to the Sheriff's Department administration asking about visitation resumption have not yet been responded to. So can some dialogue take place between the needed departments to arrange safe resumption of visitation? Also, please update us on the status of agreements regarding the sharing of information between all necessary departments and the new Office of Corrections and Law Enforcement Monitoring. After years of waiting for this office to be established, it's hoped that this would be done as quickly as possible with the full cooperation and attention needed from all involved departments within our county. Thank you, and again, my apologies.
No worries at all. Thank you. Glad you got through, Christine. Go ahead, Martha.
Okay, next up is Public Defender O'Neill.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Hard to know where to begin, really. I think I'll start with the same subject that Chair Ellenberg and Vice Chair Wasserman started with, which is George Floyd's murder. Our office is, as all of you and your offices are, feeling a tremendous amount of sadness about the fact that we are again having to go through a Black man being murdered in police custody with handcuffs on while he was suffocated, and having to watch the video over and over again. And I think the job for us is to really focus on positive ways to express that sadness. So to that end, I am really encouraging staff to engage in peaceful protests and to have conversations, to have those difficult conversations about race and about the police departments and ways to move forward, excuse me, in a positive way. So I think that's going to be on the agenda for all of us for some time. As far as the court closure, let me just pivot to that very briefly. We objected to the court closure. We made those objections known to both Judge Ryan and Judge Gaffon, and we had some of our staff protesting on Monday about that closure due to the impact on our clients. However, I understand the court's concerns and what they were dealing with at the time that they made that decision. And I would only say that it would have been helpful to get notice in advance of the notice of the closure so that we could have a minute to discuss it and consider implications. But it was a one-day closure, and I think that's all I have to say about that for right now. As far as operations, we are continuing with the one jury trial Judge Gaffon mentioned. It's posed its own difficulties as far as technology and frozen screens and inability to hear with masks, but I believe the court's done a good job getting the courtroom outfitted with plexiglass to make it safe for the jurors and our clients and our staff. So that continues to go on, and we have conversations every day about what our reopening is going to look like. We're hopeful that, as Dr. Smith mentioned, the Environmental Health Department will provide staff to come into our offices to do a walkthrough and give guidance on how best to navigate having more staff back in the office at the time that Public Health and the county executive okay that. we have some staff working as disaster service workers as well. Ours are being trained on contact tracing. So I believe we offered 7 members of our staff, and they'll be starting up next week. We also are continuing to do some outreach to homeless encampments, especially during this heat, to make sure that there's adequate water and that they continue to be provided with information about linkage to services where they can get the help that they need. And one last thing I would say is that there was a death in Los Angeles of a deputy public defender, which is obviously really concerning. And the lawyers in my office are obviously nervous about that. We do not know how that public defender contracted the virus, and we shouldn't speculate about it, but I'm saying it out loud because it is something that causes anxiety with lawyers who are going into court. So we're trying to provide support around that as well. And I'm happy to take any questions, and thank you for the opportunity to let you know what's going on at the public defender's office.
Thank you very much. Supervisor Wasserman?
Thank you. I just want to say nice words, Molly, about what's happening in America. Thank you for that sensitivity. I have no questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next up is Custody Health Services, Andrew James.
Hi, can you hear me okay, Martha? Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Supervisor Ellenberg, Supervisor Wasserman, quick update on custody health. So custody health continues to promote social distancing, use of masks, and frequent hand washing to prevent spread. And aside from that, we are testing all adult and youth inmates upon booking, and also on day 12 before they're released in general population. We have completed baseline testing of all custody health, medical, nursing, dental, mental health, clerical staff, and that also includes contracted staff as well. And we are in discussion with the VMC Hospital Command Center to determine what would be the best way to perform surveillance testing moving forward. We continue to explore the option of surveillance testing and other methods on how we can help reduce the risk of exposure and spread. Furthermore, about the discharge process, presently we are not testing asymptomatic inmates upon discharge because of the quarantine process and the surveillance testing that we have begun. However, on a case-by-case basis, custody health will test asymptomatic individuals if they're being discharged to another congregate setting, if there's any kind of suspicion or exposure or actual COVID-19 symptoms. And that is an update. Thank you. I can take questions.
Thanks. I do have some questions. I heard you say continuing to explore. I would definitely like us to have a plan and some timing. Maybe that's, I'm not sure to direct that back to you, Andrew, or to Dr. Smith. I'd really like a more specific timeline on when EOC will provide a protocol for testing and an update on the surveillance and discharge testing.
Sure, Supervisor Lundberg, I can get back to you on this.
Dr. Smith, can you add anything?
Not anything more than what Andrew said. I'll make sure that we get back to you on a off-agenda memo.
Thank you. Supervisor Wasserman?
No, ma'am, no questions.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next up is the Office of Supportive Housing. I think we have Consuelo Hernandez on the line, or Keely.
Good afternoon, Consuelo Hernandez. He sends his apologies. He had to attend to another meeting. I'll make my comments brief. The Office of Supportive Housing has been operating nonstop through this crisis, and we've been working very closely with the City of San Jose and our continuum of care partners to address the needs of the homeless individuals affected by the novel coronavirus, and our local strategies have maintained through this time. I wanted to share out of the EOC, some of our managers from the Office of Supportive Housing have been supporting the Joint Development Operations Center and handling the temporary housing hotline. And so we generally serve two big categories of populations in non-congregate shelter. This is for people that are COVID positive or individuals who are in need of isolation and don't have other means of isolating, homeless individuals and households who are at risk or high risk or vulnerable for complications related to COVID. And then the second bucket is through our congregate shelters, and these are for any unhoused individuals. And since we started operating this effort and the hotline, we have received a total of 3,010 referrals. And of those referrals, phone calls from the community members that we've received, 1,314 individuals have been placed. So approximately 44% of those that have called in to the call-in center have been placed. About 30 individuals have denied any assistance. We are unable to locate 715 different people. These are folks that have called. We've attempted multiple times to reach them unsuccessfully. We have a few other groups that have either declined the type of referral that we've given them, whether that's a hotel or a shelter bed, that they've denied it. And we have roughly about 50 or so people that are waiting or pending to be placed into one of the either congregate or non-congregate shelters. Most recently, our attention has been, as somebody else mentioned on the call, on the hot weather. And we have established and set up a number of cooling centers that are available throughout the county. Specifically, 3 county libraries were open yesterday between 1 and 6. And then the city of San Jose has also created and set up a couple of cooling centers throughout the balance of the week. Happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you. Just to clarify, when you say you've lost track of people, are those people who are COVID positive?
These are not. These are not. We have placed every COVID positive person that has reached out to our office or that has been referred. Oftentimes we are getting phone calls from people that are either outside of our county or for a number of reasons that they've called initially. We have reached out back to them and they either don't respond or they're unable to be, when they call in, if they are homeless or if they identify a specific location for us, they might say, I'm currently at St. James Park. We send out an outreach team 3 or 4 times attempting to locate the individual, and oftentimes they're not located there. If they call back, then we go back out there to the site. But in some instances, people call, they self-resolve, they're able to find a shelter, or they're able to find a room that they might be able to rent or a couch to sleep on. These are non-COVID positive individuals. These are homeless folks who have nowhere to go right now.
Got it. And what hours is that phone number operational, and how many people are available to answer phones during those hours?
We were initially, for the first 8 weeks, 10 weeks or so, running this 7 days a week, 9 to 6, with 4 or 5 people answering the phones. And it's a partnership between behavioral health, VHHP, the city of San Jose, and the Office of Supportive Housing. So we have nurses that are available to triage the individual to determine their needs from a health perspective. If they are COVID positive, they are then transported to a non-congregate setting or a hotel. And if they are not COVID positive, they are offered, depending on their health assessment, either a hotel, which is referred to as non-congregate shelter, or congregate shelter bedding.
Right. I'm just focusing a little bit more operationally. If people call after 6 in the evening, they'll get a recording or an answering machine?
Yes.
What?
Yes,
Okay.
so there's a voicemail set up, and our team will then respond to them in the morning. Last weekend, we shifted our operations because of the decrease in phone calls over the weekend. We shifted operations back to Monday through Friday. But for COVID positive individuals, they are served 7 days a week, 9 to 6.
Do they have a different phone number?
If they call, it's the same number. Except on the weekends, if they are COVID positive and need a housing placement, they are asked to call the EOC. The EOC team is handling the placements over the weekends. Yeah.
Thanks. And to address the comment that people self-resolve or they're not there when the outreach person goes, what is the response time?
The response time between the time that we receive the phone call and the time that we reach out to them. I'm sorry, I want to make sure I understand the question.
Yes, the time that someone shows up at the place where you were expecting to find the person. Is it an hour? Is it 24 hours?
We take every attempt to actually communicate with them via phone before we go out there. So if they are calling in, say today, they are typically receiving a phone call from our office within a 24-hour period. Oftentimes, if we call and can't locate them, it does take maybe 2 days to get back because they are unable to leave a voicemail, or situations happen. Every case is different. But if they leave a message, and they are not actually talking to an active person on the phone, we return the phone call within 24 hours.
Thanks. That's possibly part of the issue of not being able to find them. But that's interesting feedback. Thank you. Supervisor Wasserman?
Oh,
go ahead.
I just wanted to note that one of the things that we've proactively done, participated in partnership with our nonprofit partners, is instances where the client might not have a phone. Then we have a direct line with their case manager to help them, so that if they don't have access to a phone, or there's some limitations with their mobility, that we are in touch with somebody that's physically on the ground, assisting them and trying to get them placed into housing. And we handle that a lot more directly and hands-on versus them having to call back to our line.
That's great.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Thank you. Supervisor Wasserman.
Thank you. Consuelo, I was expecting to see Key. Thank you very much for being here. I'll thank you, and please pass it on to Key. The updates he's given on the people that passed on to Heather, who is my health and hospital, my homeless aide, if you will, that she updates me on, are tremendous. Your office is doing a tremendous job in the face of this adversity. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Supervisor.
Okay, if no other questions, we're moving to the Office of Reentry Services. Director Javier Aguirre.
Good afternoon. Again, Javier Aguirre with Office of Reentry Services. So I'd like to start my presentation by first that in the past few days, my staff have been shaken by the national events, and most importantly, been talking to the clients that come to the reentry center, ensuring them that we're doing our best to provide them with the services that they so much need, and also to begin a dialogue in terms of the conversations. I think it's important for us to integrate racial equity lens into our reentry work, and I feel like we're in the right position to do that. And I think most importantly is to have these conversations with all of our partners, both the county and community partners, to address racial injustices. And I think one thing that we've been seeing in terms of the COVID-19 pandemic and also the national events is the housing imbalance. And one of the questions that Supervisor Allenberg asked about our role in terms of housing. So a lot of our clients do come to the reentry center, and we provide them with information about the hotline. And those individuals that need a phone, we make our phones accessible for them to make that call. In addition, a lot of our service navigators that are working with their clients, they'll call on their behalf, and they'll call the hotline to call for that service. So we encourage our clients to use that hotline. We give them that flyer, and we also make sure that if they have any questions or they like to have a follow-up, that we could assist them with that follow-up with the Office of Supportive Housing. I'm going to be sharing my screen right now with regards to the our schedule for San Jose City, the San Jose Reentry Center. So I'm hoping that you are able to see the screen. So for the San Jose Reentry Center, so we are open Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. And as you can see, we have multiple providers from our staff, our community workers doing the triage in the courtyard, to the medical mobile unit, behavioral health, social services has a full-time clerical staff to assist with the public benefits, and that's one of our top requests. Through Office of Supportive Housing, we have a community worker that can address any questions about housing, and the faith-based center staff is there as well. And then we also have in May 19th, we reopened the South County Reentry Center, and I'll share the screen for the South County Reentry Center schedule. So we're open Tuesday to Thursday from 8 to 5, and from just the 5 days that we've been in operation since we closed in early March, we've had about 16 clients. So we're going steady and seeing clients that need our services in South County. So most important is having Catholic Charities and Breakout Prison Outreach or service navigation to support our clients there at the Reentry Center in South County.
Excuse me, Javier,
Yes.
through the chair, if I may. Susan, is that all right? Yes. I heard you say they're Tuesday to or Tuesday through, but it's Tuesday and Thursday. You're not open on Wednesdays, right?
Correct, just Tuesday and Thursday. Yes,
Thank you
for
very
the
much.
clarification.
Yep.
And then lastly, we have, let me share the screen regarding let's see, a dashboard in terms of volume of calls that we receive. So we're still getting calls from community members about the Reentry Center. And of course, we had to have in-person visits. So our top service request is public benefits, medical mobile unit, and housing. So those continue to be our top needs. And I think it's important to let the committee know and community members that we have a dedicated staff of community outreach, peer mentors there to support and triage clients and give them the right information. We also work very closely with the sheriff, probation, pretrial, those individuals that are under their supervision to link them back to their officers so they can report out. And then the parole program continues to function in terms of providing services to the clients that are parolees. And then we continue to also staff the resource table at Elmwood. That's 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. and then 7:30 to 10:30 p.m. 7 days a week with the exception of Sunday evenings. We're having a hard time finding staff to do that, but it's between the behavioral health faith-based community organizations and our contracted providers. And then one thing about transportation. So one of the questions that Supervisor Ellenberg also asked about the transportation, how do we get our clients, getting them transportation from point A to point B? So one of the issues that have surfaced has been the clients that are being released in the evenings and VTA is no longer in operation. We have one of our community organizations carry the vision, and they were able to obtain Uber ride cards. So I think on Tuesday night during the whole curfew, someone was released after 10:30 p.m. and the community organization was able to offer that individual an Uber ride from Elmwood to their home safely. So that's something that we are continuing to monitor. How do we expand the use of Uber or those ride shares to our clients. Another thing too that I believe the board requested the administration work with VTA about the transportation assessment. And one of the pieces that I like to learn more and how we could move it forward is a shuttle service, and then between Elmwood to the reentry center and other locations. So that's something to look into in terms of providing a safe transportation to our clients. And then one last thing about transportation, we're very fortunate that we work with our sheriff's department, where there's a client who is under the CAPS program, the Community Assessment Placement Supervision, where if an individual is going to be released to the CAPS program, the sheriff will transport the individual from Elmwood to main jail. A sheriff deputy will then walk that individual to the reentry center in San Jose to begin the warm handoff, and that happens on Monday and Wednesday mornings. It's only about average of 5 individuals, but that I believe is the most effective warm handoff from jail to reentry center. And then once they come to the reentry center, they meet with the probation officer and then with our community triage. And then just lastly, we continue to work with social services to expand general assistance, CalFresh, and Medi-Cal enrollment. So that's something that as we continue to increase staff safely at the reentry center, how can we also add more staff for social service agency? And with that, I conclude my presentation.
Thank you very much, Javier. There's so much good work going on in there in reentry services, and I'm happy to hear about the transportation piece that's available in after hours. But how are we filling that hole when somebody is released after reentry center is closed, after the Office of Supportive Housing phone number isn't being directly answered? How do we connect people then who will otherwise be homeless when they're released from the jail?
So yes, so my understanding that the individuals that are going to be connected to a behavioral health treatment, custody health is working with behavioral health to have that warm handoff. So in the past, it would be the provider picking up the individual from jail. And now it is the behavioral health staff picking up that individual from the jail and taking them to treatment. Individuals that are connected to one of our service navigators, some of the rehab officers through the sheriff, they'll coordinate the pickup for the individual. Unfortunately, there's a lot of folks that are released after the center is closing on the weekends. So if we have a resource table there in the evenings, we will do our best to provide that transportation, give them the information to VTA. But the majority, I would say, are having a hard time getting transportation from Elmwood into their communities.
Yeah, and have you considered, I know you were at some point, but thought any more about evening or weekend hours?
Yes, so as we start safely bringing back staff at the reentry center, and if we need to limit the number of clients coming into the reentry center to do social distancing, we're looking at evening hours and weekends. In the past, we were open Mondays and Wednesdays till about 7 or 8:30, 7 or 8 p.m. So we're thinking about those hours once we are able to do that in collaboration with the public health order and then with the county administration.
Great, thank you very much. About what percentage of your services are back up in operation?
So behavioral health, social services, Office Supportive Housing, faith-based, we're all on site, and the Office of Reentry Services, we're all on site helping persons in person. Most of all of our community organizations are doing remote work. And so now we're looking at expanding that Zoom capability for classes. And if there is a need, especially with behavioral health clients that are having to do outpatient treatment, and they're having a hard time doing outpatient treatment via Zoom, we're looking at the client being able to be at the reentry center and still have that Zoom capability and offer that safe location for them.
Great, thank you so much. Mike.
Thank you. And I just want to thank you, Javier, for reopening South County and Gilroy. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
All right, finishing us out is the Sheriff's Office. I'm going to turn this over to Assistant Sheriff Davis.
Good afternoon, supervisors. I'm going to go ahead and kick it off just by giving you an update. We've had 11 full-time employees assigned to EOC since its inception. We have about 20 assigned to our COVID tracing unit and another 3 as DSWs. And I've been speaking to COVID-19 and what we've been doing to, help delay the spread, if you will, and address some of our key concerns for quite some time. I thought it'd be a great idea to bring in a couple of my captains, Captain Duran and Captain Paget, because they're literally boots on the ground. And as I listen to some of the community concerns, which concerns us as well, we certainly want to make sure that they're very aware and that they can also speak to a lot of what they're doing so that they can put everybody's minds at ease. So with that, I'd like to hand it over to Captain Duran and Captain Paget.
Thank you, Assistant Sheriff Davis. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. Getting used to Zoom here, sorry. So good afternoon, board, chair, and committee members. My name is Captain Paget. I'm the captain of the Elmwood facility in Milpitas. The Sheriff's Office is constantly reviewing our COVID-19 protocols and practices to ensure we have current best practices in preventing and reducing the spread of the virus within our jail population. We are in constant communication with county health and public health to ensure this happens. As you know, we recently had several cases of COVID-19 within our jail population. This was a concern for us, and we immediately discussed these cases with public health and custody health. During these discussions, it was discussed most of these cases were from a 14-day open dorm risk management unit. In our continued efforts to provide a safe and virus-free environment, we have begun transitioning our population to provide additional single-cell risk management units. We felt this is a better way to prevent any in-custody transmission. This type of housing also allows us to work better with custody health since they have begun administering COVID tests on day 1 to all arrested who will be staying within our jails. This allows us to further separate until we are given results from this day 1 test. Once these results come back, the individual will be introduced to an appropriate group still within the risk management unit, or if positive, appropriately housed per custody health. This day 1 test is in addition to our current test offered at day 12. I would like to thank public health and county health. To date, we have tested over 770 individuals within our jail population. As a department, we have had a total of 15 positive cases within our jail. This is less than 2% of a positive test rate and even a lower percentage in relation to our overall population of over 2,100. With increasing testing on day 1, this number could increase. We are hopeful, and public health and custody health agree with the additional changes described above, we will be in a better position to manage any increases in community-acquired cases introduced into our jails. Currently in custody, we have 10 positive cases. We have also recently made some changes to protecting staff. In addition to normal PPE staff is wearing, we have mandated that staff working in risk management units wear some type of eye protection. We have previously provided all staff with safety glasses. As Assistant Sheriff Davis had mentioned, we are concerned about the public comment, and we did take note of them. They are surprising because my staff and I actively walk around the facility, and we have not noticed any of these concerns brought forward. Be assured that I will look into, but I am confident these are not happening. And I'm here for any questions if you guys have any.
Thank you. Do you want to start, Supervisor? Go ahead.
No, I said no, ma'am. Thank you for that.
Okay. Is there any jail monitoring that's happening right now?
Monitoring as far as
the commission or the Commission on the Status of Women, just thinking about the huge discrepancy in descriptions of what's happening, what the physical condition is in the jail I'm starting with.
Not that I know of, but we would gladly reach back out to public health for any input.
Yeah, it would be good to know when the monitoring programs can start again with, I'm forgetting the name of the other Commission on the Status of Women, and HRC. I think that's really helpful to have those eyes inside, because then we're not, speculating or listening to hearsay about what people are reporting
I agree.
from people who are in custody or any other information. Those are really valuable programs, and I understand why they had to stop, of course. I want to draw your attention also to some COVID-related concerns during the protests. There are lots of viral videos and photos that are calling out sheriff's deputies' lack of adherence to masking and social distancing protocols. There's a picture of a group sharing a pizza in a parking lot. Can you tell me not only what the requirements are, because I imagine that I know what they are, but what is the culture around wearing the masks in public, really modeling and maintaining social distance, and what do you think can be done to elevate that?
If I may, Supervisor Ellenberg, let me take that.
Sure, please.
So I understand the picture that you are referencing, and I hope that that's not a demonstration of our day-to-day activities, as that particular picture was not representative of any of our day-to-day activities. It was a photo behind the SAP Center during a lot of protests, and those deputies were able to come off the line and get a bite to eat and kind of decompress and get some water. But we do enforce the social distancing guidelines. The timeliness, whether it be 60 minutes and possibly soon to be 15 minutes, depending on whether you're around somebody who's positive or not. Wearing of masks when you are potentially going to be interacting with arrestees and or others for a prolonged period of time, partners or otherwise. But I think that's kind of in the general area of what you might have seen. But even in custody, we have heard reports that, well, even one of the speakers had mentioned they're wearing it on the belt. We don't enforce wearing the mask the entire shift, only when they're in environments where it's recommended. And if they need to remove the mask, put it on their belt to perform some other function or to take a break, then we absolutely support that as well. But while they're interacting with our population, we certainly want them to wear their masks.
And the protocol when they are outside, when they're patrolling, or when they're supporting with the protest safety management, is it a recommendation or requirement?
So again, we encourage them, depending on the circumstances. There are so many possibilities to answer that question. I don't know specifically what we would be looking at, so I'm trying to generalize. We want them, anytime they're potentially going to be exposed or could potentially expose others, to wear a mask. Again, we can't mandate it because we want them to cool their bodies, and we want them to hydrate and other things. So that does play into it.
Sure, I appreciate that. We need you all to stay healthy, please.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let me ask, just 1 second, I'm sorry. Gave myself a note that I'm not focusing on right now. Let me turn to Supervisor Wasserman for a moment. Do you have questions?
No, ma'am.
You gave me no delay tactic there. All right, well, whatever it is can wait. And it will come back, and then back to you, Martha, thanks.
All right, there were, sorry.
Go ahead, excuse me.
No, there were no further presentations, Supervisor.
That's right.
Thanks. Ben, can I ask a question just quickly to Dr. Smith on the status of the information sharing agreements between OCLEM and the sheriff? If that, Rob, can I ask that during this meeting, or should I take that offline?
It came up in the meeting. I think it's a simple question. There won't be action. I think you can ask that specific question, but there shouldn't be any extensive discussion since it's not.
Okay, thank you.
Actually, probably Rob can give a better answer, but my understanding is that one of the agreements was finalized and sent out from county council. Are I think two more. Well, one has already been signed, one is sent out, and I think there are two more that are pending review. As soon as they're done with review, they'll be signed by the two departments. So I'm not quite sure about the timing. Maybe Rob can give us some idea.
Please.
The only timing I can provide is the timing that County Counsel James Williams gave at the board meeting earlier this week, which is the agreement relating to information sharing specifically with the sheriff's office. He completed his legal review of that on Tuesday, and that was going to go forward and go out. I'm not certain what the scope of that review is. I will find out the answers to the questions on things that are on our plate, and we'll report to you off agenda to both supervisors.
Thank you very much. Oh, I'm so sorry. 1 second.
Daughters.
Oh, horrible. I'm ready to go back to work. Thank you. I know that this has been in process for now a couple of years, but I think there's certainly heightened attention right now around independent oversight. I think that benefits all of us in and out of the offices, so that we really have that understanding and clarity and opportunity to build trust. So I'd appreciate your getting back to me. I'll also check in with Sheriff Smith from her end. I know that she was waiting to receive information from County Council, so that would be great. Thank you. And with that, I don't think we need do we need a motion to have received all of those reports?
No, ma'am.
All right, and I'm going to move on to item 8 and invite anyone on this virtual dais who has an announcement to please share it with us. Maybe give a little wave or just start talking.
Nope.
All right, then I'm going to conclude with my announcement. So hang on, Mike. I want to go back to the statement that I made at the start of the meeting so that I can tee up what I would like to see at our next meeting. And I'll start by sharing that I am really proud of being part of an organization that has committed to and made great strides in increasing accountability and transparency in its law enforcement practices and creating a safer, more restorative environment in the county's jails. As community members seek to engage with their local officials, I wanted to help clarify the purview of different jurisdictions so that we are clear on what actions are within the Board of Supervisors' authority, as opposed to the Office of the District Attorney, the Office of the Sheriff, and the various local law enforcement agencies, such as San Jose Police Department. So this is my quick civics lesson. Cities, and in particular mayors, have jurisdiction over the policies of their police departments. Police chiefs are generally appointed by mayors, as is the case in San Jose. I was heartened to see Mayor Liccardo take the Not One More pledge, which is a call to action to cities to review use of force policies and engage with the community on policy reform. And I think that's a good step. The sheriff, though she sits on this committee, is an independently elected official and has authority over the policies of all of the officers and civilian staff in her office. And though I don't have jurisdiction over the policies Sheriff Smith puts in place, I would encourage her to sign a similar pledge to adopt all 8 policies and then put them into place. The district attorney is also an independently elected official and has discretion as to which potentially criminal cases he will investigate and prosecute. DA Rosen posted yesterday on Facebook his commitment to do more in pursuit of equity, fairness, and justice. Thank you, Jeff, for that pledge. One recommendation I might make would be to create an independent unit in the DA's office that is dedicated to investigating and prosecuting abuses of power by law enforcement officers. San Francisco has such a model and has already shown good results. So where does that leave the county, and in particular, me as a member of the Board of Supervisors? I can't make policy to mandate behavior of law enforcement officers, and I can't mandate who should be investigated or prosecuted. Where I see the best opportunity for constructive county engagement is to invest in the systems, programs, services, and workforce that provide an alternative to engagement with the criminal justice system, focusing on prevention, which of course includes addressing root causes of poverty and structurally racist policies, intervention, de-escalation, diversion, and re-entry. Santa Clara County, and particularly all of you on the virtual dais with me today, are already doing some leading edge work here. We've made impressive progress, yet there is so much more we can do. Tragedies like the murder of George Floyd both force us to reflect on what more we could and should be doing to ensure that every member of our community is safe and treated equitably and justly. I know when I say that I want all of us to continue to push to be better, I'm speaking to willing partners because you have all shown it in your leadership. So I want to hear from you all of the things that you'd like, from all of you, the things that you would like to explore that could lead to more just outcomes, particularly for people of color in Santa Clara County. I know I have some ideas that I would like to explore. For example, I want to talk about how we can utilize behavioral health service providers and SUTS providers, advocates for victims of intimate partner violence and others to support or possibly supplant law enforcement when responding to calls that aren't about crimes in progress, but about people in crisis. As much as I would like to, I know we can't have that discussion today because it was not part of the public agenda, and that is a Brown Act rule, and I see County Council nodding. I plan to agendize this discussion at the August PSJC meeting so that I can hear from all of you. So before we go, here is your homework, should you choose to accept the assignment. I'd like each of you to think of a couple of things that the county is doing well and should be doing more of, and bring back a couple of new services or suggestions for services, policies, or protocols that we should implement to promote positive change and continued growth in our county. And if you're a member of the public listening, I invite you to reach out to my office with your suggestions of what more we can be doing, or what I can be doing as a member of the Board of Supervisors to bring about real justice. We are not perfect, and we may never be, but what makes Santa Clara County great is that we will not stop pushing to be better, because that is what our community deserves. And with that, we are adjourning until the next meeting on Thursday, August 6th at 2 p.m.
Excuse me, through the chair.
Oh, yes.
We do have one public speaker on this
Oh,
item.
thank you. I apologize. Thanks, Nancy. Public speaker on item 8.
Yes. Our speaker is Scott Largent. I am unmuting you. Please accept the unmute and you will have 2 minutes to speak. The timer will start when you begin speaking.
Thank goodness for the clerks, right, Scott?
I know. They've got my back. Good afternoon, everybody. Scott Largent. You know, everybody's kind of making all these announcements, which is it's pretty neat. I do appreciate what you had to say today, Susan, and hopefully, well, I guess what I'll get at is my announcement. Of all things, I started posting so many videos and so much information about free speech in Santa Clara County that the ACLU, which is basically non-existent, I've been getting calls from investigators, staff attorneys, regular attorneys, the Marshall Project, which is pretty interesting. The New York Times has reached out to me. I'm very excited to hopefully get some serious momentum right now to start fixing our justice system here in Santa Clara County. Free speech is dead here in Silicon Valley. public comment, somebody put a bullet in that a long time ago. Okay, we need to start switching some things around. And I would suggest doing maybe an internal investigation or something. I know we don't want to be putting together all these committees. Start finding out why protesters are being prosecuted on a criminal level, a civil level, why DA Frozen Rosen has been going after activists for the last 3 or 4 years with a vendetta. I mean, we should start figuring this out, and we should be able to exercise our democratic values. I should be able to be out on that curb with my megaphone, and I don't have my megaphone anymore because it's sitting in an evidence locker, and this will be the 3rd time that I have been prosecuted in Santa Clara County for basically free speech rights. One person on a sidewalk. Okay, we should have the right to speak up. And I really enjoyed everybody going out and peacefully protesting. And let's start putting pressure on San Jose PD to never have this happen again. And I'd like to thank the Sheriff's Department for not shooting me with rubber bullets, not hitting me with nightsticks, not throwing a flash bomb grenade at me, and also basically not just abusing my rights. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And with that, now we will adjourn this meeting and reconvene on Thursday, August 2nd at 2 p.m. Hopefully back at 70 West, possibly on this screen. Thanks so much, everybody, and be healthy. Be well.
Thank you.